Welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of the Splatty League podcast. It's just me and Nabil today. Nabil, how you doing?
Good, good. I like an emergency pod sometimes. A good old let's fit it in between a lunch break. Well, at least some of us have the holiday, but I got to work through this. But I'm excited to see you, man. I'm excited to get this conversation going again, and hopefully we can bring it back to being more consistent.
Yeah, it's been tough for this year to find a good time for us. Saturday mornings we're working because I was usually not reffing football until the afternoon, and it's playoffs now, and so now I've been doing the younger kids games, just means earlier in the day, and it's so like I'm not going to get up at 7 a.m. to report a podcast, so I can then be out the door at 8, like to go to be at the field by 8:45 or whatever. So this week is probably going to be the last week that Saturday doesn't work, unless I get to ref the championship game, but we'll see. I don't know if I
But
want.
maybe that's the perfect timing, right? We're getting close to playoffs. We're getting close to where it matters, and this is where our commentary becomes more fun, and maybe it'll be better to ideally you could stay in the fight, and but if you don't, at least you have you and James giving the outside opinions. But
Yeah,
we'll see.
yeah, no. If James beats me this week, like then I'll see him in the toilet bowl, Like that's like I think if I don't get the win, I basically the way I'm looking at my season is I gotta run the table, and I play James, it should be a win, and then next week I play Travis, which is like, look, you got to beat the best if you want to be the best. So it's I got to win, and then we go into the division games, and those are must wins no matter what. Once it gets tight, so because I'm not making the playoffs if I'm not top of the division. The way I'm looking at it is I got to go win 8 in a row right now. Start
And
for
it's not impossible. I
It's
mean,
not
not with like
impossible.
not with last week's performance, but yeah, you definitely have a shot. We'll have to we'll have to see how that goes because I feel like overall, and maybe we're just diving into it a little bit here, but like, you know, I know I said this last year and I know I said it the year before, but this year has to be the year with the most injuries to significantly like important fantasy players, right?
Yeah,
So much so that like Jonathan Taylor, right? His injury is keeping him out. So he's immediately losing value. And let's not even go over the fact that the Colts suck, right? But then there's like top receivers and like I'll complain too a little bit. Like the fact that all my top receivers are injured or have designations, like it's kind of wild how much that has been able to alter most seasons. And for me, now in my current and next season because I made so many trades um, and lost so many of my early picks. But ideally, I come into form and people come back right into playoffs. It's nice to be 6-3 as opposed to 3-6, and so um, I feel less inclined to need to like run the board, but
no, yeah, but
it's still
you put yourself in a good place. Record wise, where like excuse me, if Williams and Chase come back, if either one of them like comes back at his 80% of what they were, like that's a great pickup late. Like your team gets better. If both of them are 80%, that's even like that's that much better. And I think especially with Chase, there's a good chance that he's like very healthy. I mean, I'm riding the the Bengals bandwagon at this point too. But like
yeah.
I need Burrow to play well. Um, I think they're going to get better down the back stretch of the season. I don't remember exactly who they play down the stretch, but like they got like Tampa Bay, New England, Buffalo's a better defense, but they're gonna have it's gonna be a shootout. Like they're I'm liking Bengals players this year. But back to your point though about like this being like the most injury riddled season thus far. I don't know if it's necessarily more, or it doesn't feel like it's more, but it now feels like this is just the NFL. Like this is like it's
Yeah.
now 3 years in a row where it's felt like it's been a much more injury riddled season than typical, right? Like twice is a trend, like three times is just the standard at this point.
Yeah, it's so hard to navigate, especially with generally the inconsistencies in offense. And I think we talked about this in the previous episode, right? Like is it that offenses are now so efficient that they spread the ball? And like, yeah, we obviously have studs that play players that are pretty much the main focal point of their teams. But what does that obviously make them? It makes them more injury prone in the long term because they're taking more hits. And yeah, it's just been wild. And
Well, I
I don't
mean,
know.
here, we recorded this on Veterans Day on Friday. I can't find when it was posted, but like today, news broke that the NFLPA has filed a grievance with the league, and basically not filed a grievance, but basically made a request that every field with artificial turf gets replaced with grass. Like, I don't know. Like, so here's the thing too, though. Like, I don't know if like the turf has changed or like how they're building these new, like it sounds like maybe it has, but is that like how wild would it be if in 5 years that actually like that change has been made and turf's gone, and we look back at this time and see like I don't know, like is that, I don't want to get to like be like a conspiracy theory podcast here, but like is that part of it? Like is there new turf like that's causing all the injuries?
Well, okay, as someone who's
Like,
recently suffered an Achilles tear, right?
right.
I think it's funny. I was talking to I also played in my first game back on Monday. So
Congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. But pretty much what I was asking is like, what do I need to be fearful of certain things? And one of the things you said is like, while you are the conditions of the field are pretty much consistent throughout, the season or, even throughout the game, turf fields are dangerous because there is less give, right? So there's
Yeah.
a limit in which you press into grass and the grass gives. Whereas like turf is like, because it's synthetic and it's all one mat, like you don't have as much give, which is why we're blowing out so many more knees.
Right.
And I mean, you can maybe even argue to some extent, maybe it is a harder surface to land on. So now you're getting more collarbones and shoulders. And yeah,
Like,
not to be like I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on, but I do think that there is probably a greater impact. There's also fields that I had no idea were turf
yeah.
until I recently saw them, and it's hard. It's like injuries aside, like even for places that play in hotter weather that are still not domes, the the heat that is generated from the pellets and the fields is also an issue. And
Yeah.
who knows? Like now I'm like a Karen with a tin hat and thinking like we also be careful about like what fumes are coming off the fields for the players because a lot of times it's recycled rubber is a cheaper way of doing it. Um, and so yeah, I don't know. I would hope. I mean I like seeing grass stains on
Yeah.
jersey and like if there is weather, um, or bad weather, then I'd love to see it. But what does that do for the domes? That's where, like, I know Arizona has their super high tech, but I'd be
Yeah.
curious to see what
I don't
happens.
know. I don't know. I don't know how it gets done. I mean, it's 2022. Figure it out. Like, like
That's true.
it's not like it's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is they end up paneling in the same way Arizona does, the same way they could bring in
Yeah, I
stage
don't know if you
equipment
can.
for
I
concerts.
mean, like, can Detroit Stadium do that? Like, is there space? Like,
Well, I guess they're gonna have to grow the grass somewhere. But yeah, we are going way too in the weeds here. Not
yeah,
this, but I do agree that I think with all the new stadiums in the last
pretty much.
5 years,
Yeah,
like I would argue that yeah, we haven't seen an increase in injuries because athletes are like significantly more athletic anyway, right? Because like everyone is treating this. I'm not gonna say they're treating it more seriously than back in the day, but like it just seems like people's level of fitness is so much higher,
right.
right? Like there's a reason why there's like an astronomical number of wide
Yeah,
receivers
I
or
mean,
running backs that can break 21 miles an hour wearing pads. Like that's
like,
insane.
yeah, there's like the theoretic. Like, I remember reading like I think probably part of my one of my BMed classes like that. Like we're approaching actually like mechanically, biomechanically, like the peak of like 100% efficiency, like right, like like they say that like theoretically like the fastest like 100-meter dash that we could run I think is in the like 9.2 seconds range. Like we're getting pretty close. These NFL athletes are pushing themselves so like they're pushing themselves so much. It sucks. So, like we see this many injuries, and then we're there's implications of that that go into money. Like teams are sitting their starters longer, or just like pulling them sooner from games, like really using the first few weeks of the season as preseason still. Anyway, we got to talk about the real stuff, the fantasy football. I want to point out that there are, despite me being 3-6 and being delusional that I'm still in it and got a chance, there are 8 teams right now, 8 managers with winning records. There are only 6 playoff spots. That means that at least 2 of the teams with winning records over halfway through the season are not going to make it. There's going to be heartbreak. There's like for somebody, Nabil. What do you think? What are your thoughts looking at the standings right now?
I'm gonna kind of reiterate the same thing I said for the injuries, but for this, I thought it last year, but I think it now. Like the parity right now in our league is incredible. The fact that there's no one undefeated, right? And this
That's
is
close.
this is
3
this
first place.
this is the thought was, oh, Hunter's gonna have to find points. Yeah, he's sitting in first, right? There was people that you could look at, or maybe even if you weren't feeling too hot on your team, or you started 0-3, and now you look at this board, everyone's still in it. Like, realistically, yes, you could still make it. And is it going to be tough? 100%. But I do think, all in all, like I I think this is why the divisions might be fun, because I know that we talked about what if one team is really like, how I was telling you about like the um what is it? It's not reparation. What is the delegated? Delegated? What happens in Premier League?
Relegated.
Relegated. Knew I had like 8 different words in my head. I'm in the middle of a work day, so calm down. But someone gets relegated, like 2 teams get relegated from each division, put into a pot and redistributed in. And I think there was concerns about, well, those are the worst teams. They're not really, you're gonna kind of get stuck. But I think we've learned here, like teams who look like they've like that's what gives me hope about making the trades I did, right? Was looking at Hunter, who pretty much had no draft picks in the beginning, and he's up in first place. So it means I could do it too. But like that just tells you how much rotation we have and how generally even our league is, right? Because even like, and I'm like all over the place in my concept here for what this means for the standings, but like even looking at the trades, right? Like it's actually been pretty quiet. And yes, there's been 2 trades since the beginning of November, but they're all pretty minor. There hasn't, like, other than maybe like me in
Stuff you did with
going
James
for like
was big.
huge buys, and I think made some huge buys too. Ultimately, like, it still seems like everyone feels like they have a chance, and I know that from also me poking around to see what's out there. But like, it's cool to think that everyone has a chance, and looking at the records, that couldn't be more true. Like we're all like pretty close for points for, points against. I mean, people maybe like actually everyone who's in division doesn't look like they're skating, right? Like they're playing tough competition and they're in first in their division.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm all over the place, but it's
No,
it's cool to see that, right? Like
yeah, I think that the divisions thing, I go back and forth a lot. Like it's a fun experiment, and I'm enjoying the wrinkle to it. But like I think it does like this. I don't know. It shows that there's like everyone's still in it, but I don't think not. I mean, I'm probably farther on the outside looking in if there are no divisions, right? Like I'm only 2 games back of a playoff spot where it would also still just be 2 games back without divisions, but like I also know that like okay, like I get a guaranteed like 3 shots at these teams ahead of me. Like I get a shot at each one of them. Like it narrows the like what I need to focus on a little bit, or maybe just makes it easier for everyone to see. But I don't know. It's I hope that this scheduling doesn't get stale is all, like that we feel like we're like if it builds true rivalries, like that's great. But yeah, it's I mean every division right now is 6 is excuse me, 500, 12 and 12 overall. Or no, not 12, 18 and 18.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
what are you talking about?
No,
But
but like it's not like there's one division that's good, one division that's bad right now. Like I think
and I don't think we thought this at the beginning of the season. I thought it looked like there was maybe it was like the grad running away with it.
it
But then
did. It
like
really did. I mean, they still have three playoff teams, but it did.
no, it's that too. And I want to say like I think this is going to be interesting. We've noted multiple times, so we don't necessarily have to like look through everyone's rosters, but this is where we're going to get a lot of mix up. And I honestly think the next few weeks, well, I don't know if we have, I think we have one more bipocalypse, but these next couple of weeks with buys are really up until the 14th. This is where we're going to see like a lot more compression, I feel like, because there are teams that don't have depth, right? And but we also know, in a perfect example is the matchup that Drew was in last week. Like you can have Joe Mixon lose a match,
Yeah.
all because of everything else in your bye week. So like it's not like you drafted wrong and that your team is bad. You're just gonna have those weeks. And I think we're gonna see that again, compress everyone's record. No one's gonna run away with it. And at least in my opinion, there are teams with depth that could get through it, but who knows? Like half those players with depth have injuries.
Yeah, but I mean that was my whole that's what I texted you. I've talked to Devin about this too. That like I looked I because when I was sitting at 1 and 5 or whatever, I was like, okay, let me at least look at the rest of the schedule and see what's up. And I realized like, oh, I play Hunter when CMC's on bye. Like I got a um fairly easy matchup against Devin that I blew because he had both of his Chiefs on bye. Then I play Nabil last week, get a win because or sorry, Hunter wasn't sorry, Nabil at CMC. Hunter, I can't remember what Cooper Cup was out for Hunter. I
Yeah.
guess, and now I get to play James, who was selling his team. Like I had 4 solid weeks in a row, and I remember telling myself if I can go 3-1 and get to 4-6, I'll probably still be in it down the stretch. Like, and I've gone 2-1 so far. I've never had to like. I feel like I've never looked that far ahead just at bye weeks before, and because I usually look like one. Nope. Okay, my opponent's like got to see whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know why it worked out for me, but maybe that's just what's going to happen this season is that there's teams that have earlier, like mostly earlier buys that are now going to have more chances to win versus teams built with guys with later buys that were good early. I haven't looked that closely, but it feels like realistically like no one is going to run away with it. Like anyone who makes the playoffs has a chance, except for probably myself and James.
No, exactly. I'm just excited to see like over the next course of a few weeks that yeah, it should be good to see how most of those teams turn out, especially in some of the tighter matchups and some of the tighter divisions.
Yeah. I'm also I when we first put this all together with divisions, one thing that I was going to try to do is have each division matchup be the first 3 weeks of the season and then the last three. Part of that was because I thought that no, when we don't have divisions, what happens is that's like the first 3 weeks of the schedule repeated, right? And it did that. It made that when I hit randomized schedule on Yahoo, but it didn't do your division matches. It didn't it just like you were gonna play 3 teams twice and they were whoever. I was like, how is this not the standard? Anyway, but I am glad the way that the schedule worked out this year was like the first division matches were gone like in the first 5 weeks. Like that was awesome to just kind of get through them. I'm really glad the way the schedule worked out. It's setting up for what should be a really fun finish once we get the division matches back.
Yeah, and yeah, so we'll have to definitely look out for that. When is I think the deadline for the trades is coming up, right?
Coming up, it is 1 week from tomorrow. It's so
Yeah,
it'll be
the 19th or 20th.
yeah, whatever the Saturday is. So you got to have it in by midnight, Saturday, or I guess 10 o'clock, for you Central Time Zoners. So yeah, it's coming up, and then that'll basically, so it's right before the last non-division game, and then we go through weeks of division battles while leading into the playoffs.
And now confirm this is not the moved up trade block, right? Period.
This is the moved up
This
trade
is
block.
oh
Yeah.
okay, so this is where it was. See, I think what's interesting here, right, is like everyone. This is the rare moment where it's not so much where we have like a couple 7-2s or whatever where there's just not parity. It's just really spread thin. Where like I guess you might have more of the Uber tanking, right? But like right now, like everyone's very much in it, and I'm curious to see when do the trades stop looking like a keeper league and start looking like a redraft league. And I mean that by like, I mean, I have looked and I will probably be sending offers after this week of there are trades that don't incorporate too many picks or no
Yeah.
picks at all
Yeah.
that aren't even just for keepers, but are strictly for like, yo, you don't have running back depth
Roster
and I
construction.
need,
Right.
yeah, like who knows? Maybe I find a way to finagle a quarterback from someone, right? Because like right now, I don't know how I'm sitting at 6-2 with the literally the worst quarterback play, maybe on any team throughout the entire.
I mean, realistically, it's because everything else has got, like, you did everything else well, like that, like, uh, you know.
That's how it should be, I suppose. Like that is the idea is like draft your team, and if you have, but hopefully it's like coming together and you
I
know,
mean, you had the depth, right? Like that's the whole thing with your rosters. Like you've been able to like ride out the storm of guys getting hurt. Like Taysom Hill's hit for you when you needed it, also, and not
yeah,
necessarily. Like that's been big. No, like the times where
yeah,
he's gone big, like you had him in there and you needed it, right? Which like the 33, you had him like 10 out of a tight end, like that's not bad at all, you know.
yeah.
But
And I
we
think we're at that point going through bye weeks too that you're constantly looking for like just need some points. And I think so many of us too often have probably gotten the donuts or the
oh yeah.
uh or the
Like the one target, like one target, one catch for a yard. Like, okay, cool. Like
and I think that's because there's a little bit of fantasy that is also reflecting on the NFL as a whole, right? Like some of these all-star fantasy teams just aren't, right? Like
yeah.
honestly, like yeah, the Chargers have hit or miss, and Eckler's finally turned on. That's great, cool, but like Herbert hasn't really been the best quarterback that I drafted. Or look at every freaking Packer, right? Like the inconsistencies and the poor play there. It's
There's
like,
go ahead, sorry.
yeah, no, we're it just seems like we're reflecting it. And God, Bucks, right? The Bucks have three major like weapons and then a quarterback. And Fournette, honestly, like a lot of people say he's washed. I honestly just don't think Fournette just has help right now with the line, with the run, or the what am I god, the offensive line like running scheme just isn't working for Fournette this year. And I think ultimately it's because Tom Brady can't air it out because there's also no help there.
No, but he's
So
got no protect. It's an offensive line problem though. He's got no protection. Like like
and that's kind of like the Bengals, and it looks like maybe they kind of figured it out recently, right? But like we're just getting so bad, like um ebbs and flows of like just terrible or great play that all
yeah,
these games are so unpredictable.
yeah. So that's I think we got to recognize like it really is becoming like more and more like that any given Sunday, any team can win at any time. Like it is more and more true, and that helps remind me of an old mantra that like fantasy football is a weekly game. Like you play it weekly. Every week, like matchups matter, like how a players form is, injuries matter, like the players around injuries on the other team. Like it is a week to week event. And the draft, what makes the draft so fun is like you are basically taking your picks at like who's gonna have a lot of really good weeks, right? Like that's because it's not played. It's not a it's not a what did you do for me for the whole season. It's week to week making those picks. of who's going to start a new team matters. Now, the best players are going to have more good weeks consistently, but man, yeah, we've seen a huge range uh of outcomes week to week in this, this season. I think compared to some other, like it's just becoming more and more of that. Like we're because any team can win at any time.
Yeah, and it's funny, just like maybe to also just transition into this week, right?
Yeah.
This week more than ever. Look at the matchups. The two like, and I'm gonna go by. So I apologize. I'm not trying to insult you. The two worst teams are playing each other, which now every like good team is playing each other. So
Yeah.
like there's a chance, and I see a lot of 6-3s against 5-4s that we, like I said, everything compresses, right? We're gonna have there's a chance that we have a bunch of 5-5s or six
On a
and
five, five.
fours. Um, and and that just makes it more exciting. Like this is a week that is so pivotal to maybe the future of, maybe like me and Hunter, right? I'm obviously having some injury woes. Hunter, we talked about that he's making a lot out of what he even presumed as nothing.
Yeah.
If we don't get a win here, it does start to feel a little bleaker, even with a winning, because of the fact that, like, wait, that one win could have at least got me closer to locking, because I don't even know what we need to lock in playoffs. And I guess maybe I could just like
Yeah, well,
quickly like,
so without diving into like any one matchup, just like looking at like record and projection, right? You got the two worst teams playing each other. I really hope. I mean, 97. No, on my no Joe Burrow week, like the fact that like I get to play against James is huge. If I can pull off a win, great. I'm gonna be right behind basically half the league because you got Kevin versus Hunter, basically a coin flip at this point. Kevin's team obviously really good on paper. Hunter's team has been doing great all year. The only other team who's 6-3 is you. Like you've got a good match with Rocha, like another close one. Like so maybe we get to 2-7-3 teams, maybe not. But if we're right there, like at most 7-3, 7-3. There's gonna be two, somewhere in here. There's two 5-5 or 6-4 teams.
yeah,
Like realistically, like Antonio's team could pull off a win here too against Drew. Like you don't know, even if he wins, he's still only at 6-4. And then again, like everyone's only one game apart. Like you just start doing the math, like how many teams are going to be at 5-5. Like it's going to be a good chunk. This is going to
and
be a really tight race down the stretch.
and I would think like, yes, we know that you're for a chance to make a statement this year and make your way back in. But I think if anything, like this has got to be the hardest for Antonio, right? Like Antonio needs this win because it's like Antonio's team, and I'm just, I guess you kind of can probably scroll down, but Antonio has put up 1,100 points. He has by 2/10 less than he is last place in our division with 1,100 points, which is literally towards the top in our league. Like, talk about a guy who needs to get this win because he has a team that can win the championship. And like, that's what's so crazy and so important about this week. And yeah, like, we're coming to the end where after this, there's only almost 4 more weeks. We're one game closer to divisional matchups, and he doesn't have a good divisional record. So he needs this win more than ever compared to like a lot of like compared to you as another 3-6 or any of the 4-5s. I'm looking at I looked at the past 2 seasons, both 2021, which did have the additional game, or was the first season with the additional game, and I'm looking at 2020, unless I got that wrong, but pretty sure it's the one additional last year.
Correct.
Is you 8 wins to lock yourself into finals.
Oh yeah.
So that, and because like in previous in 2029 was the it was still the minimum. I guess actually nope. Travis did win at a 7-6, but that was obviously one less game.
Like to get like going 500, going 7-7 is not going to guarantee you a spot.
Right.
Eight and
And
six would like 8-6 pretty much is going to guarantee you a spot, but right at 500 is not going to cut it. Antonio absolutely needs it. He's plays three good teams in front, like in his division matchups. Like those are all going to be hard, right? Like I don't know who he's got next week, but like he really, and I mean we have the same I have the same record as him, but like he's got the points, or all he's got to do is just he might be able to get in at 500. He probably does not need to. Like I need to run the table, but man, it just a loss is going to put him just like another game behind. That's tough. That's tough.
it's just so funny again because I look at his like the reason why he is such a high score is he lost at 140 points this last week. He
Yeah.
lost week 6. Oh no, he won week 6. He lost
This
week
is this is
5 by
this is
5 points. Yeah.
schedule. Yeah.
Like it's so such a bummer that he's been able to put up a good score. And I think again more than ever, like I don't know if he's had like a major apocalypse, and if he didn't, like good drafting and good trading, if that helped him out. But no, I'm excited to see where this week or this season ultimately ends. And I think I guess the next 2 weeks are the most pivotal before going into your divisions, right? Because how much actually play into whether someone makes playoffs or not? Does Yahoo kind of actually force?
No, yeah, we still have just total points as the tiebreaker. The divisional record is there as a in case you want to use it, but total points is still a tiebreaker. That I remember talking about changing it to head-to-head matchup, but like realistically, like the more fair tiebreaker is total points. Like
Yeah, because I mean, you just don't know again with bye weeks and stuff, but sometimes that could come into play. But no, it's just I don't know. I mean, I am excited. I know it's like relatively like kind of scattered today, but there's not really a need to necessarily dive into last matchups because I think again we can agree that last week had huge booms for some and huge busts for others, and there were like some kind of closer matchups. Like I get point
I mean,
Antonio.
the biggest thing was that this is going to end up being a really key matchup. It's Antonio again. If he pulls this off instead of losing by 4 again, it's a much different outlook for Rocha, much of the outlook for Antonio. The only other thing I'd say is like by getting the win against you, like my season's not completely over. But I definitely could have used more points. Like I got to the point where I got to keep, I can't lose. And then this is another huge one, like right, like Devin would be in first place if he had won this game.
Yeah.
Like Devin's another team, like he's been solid all year. I look at Antonio's schedule and I see a team that has not scored under 100 points. I see the same thing with Devin. That's a really good indicate. Like, if every week you're putting up triple digits this deep in the season, like that's a good sign that you've got a good team. Both of them have just got bad luck, or it seems like they've had bad luck with with some of the, like they've had solid opponents a lot of the time. Devin actually lost to Antonio by 4. And as much as we've talked about Antonio's woes losing close games, like those two both like have really solid rosters, and once they make the playoffs, it's like an anything can happen type of situation.
Yeah, and I kind of like because I'm getting close to where I have to jump on a meeting, but I do want to say I think my bold prediction might not even be for matchups. Like maybe I should just say like Christian McCaffrey is going to go off, and we're finally going to see what the offense looks like with him into the game plan, having had a bye week. Everyone's kind of on the same page. Everyone's rested. Let's see what McCaffrey can obviously do. So maybe he gets, I don't think it's that bold, over 20 points, but I think I want to make a season prediction.
Let's do it.
And I think I want to say that Slow Brew will be the division that sends the most teams to the playoffs, just like last year, but also has the potential of all 4. Like I'm gonna say they're gonna have 4 people into the playoffs. I don't even know if that's feasible.
I think that's a
But I'm gonna.
lot. I think a lot of things have to break their way, but
I mean, there's two. Like, if you get 2 wins for like, if even if Antonio cleans the board and we, as you know, myself, Spencer, and Hoyt, kind of like split up the divisions, we certainly can go in with, if not the like most even record.
yeah.
I think we'll have a pretty good shot. I'm just
So
gonna go ahead and say we'll have
yeah,
the most in the playoffs for sure, but I wouldn't be shocked if their score.
if all four make it, that means only one of Hunter, Devin, and Travis is in, and it would also mean only one of Kevin, Rocha, Drew. Which, when you say it out loud like that, the Spikes division, like that's very feasible, and it's just Kevin, like, or just Rocha, like that seems very feasible. But man, that's bold to think, yeah, that like there's a scenario where like only one out of Hunter, Devin, and Travis make it when they're currently all three of them are in playoff position. So I could,
Absolutely.
if it's only three out of yours, like, yeah, okay, I see it. But all four, wow, that okay.
Again, I don't even know if like I would have
I
to
don't know how
actually
the
go
schedule
through.
is. Yeah, this it might be impossible based on all the matchups in the schedule.
But
Um,
but I am looking at last season. How about this? I'll give you like 2 more seconds here. Is looking last year, Spencer ended 7-7. And I wonder if so did I made it into playoffs of
right.
7-7. So I'm trying to think, like, had he maybe like been able to sneak a win or two out of another team that was really cool. Oh well, nope. Every other division was too much. So maybe it's impossible. And maybe that's the point of divisions. You can't have all four. But I don't know. It would be interesting to see. And I just think, again, like, honestly, I could say the same thing for the grad. I could say the same thing for.
Well, I lost Nabil. So my bold prediction is going to be that Nabil sends, let's see, over the weekend with all the games, um, he'll probably send over 10 messages, and I'm going to guess that only three of them will have typos in it. Sorry, Nabil, we lost you, but I hope the rest of your workday goes well. Good luck, everybody, and we'll see you next time.